breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Vikings season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM and former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Ross Brendel, does a great job getting us on the air, getting all our audio clips and interviews with Vikings folks and Bengals folks leading into this big Sunday game. And Ross, I think it's a bigger game than some people think, because not only is it a battle of backup quarterbacks and the Vikings need to get a win with Carson Wentz, they need to get on a little roll here, because after this week, they go international for 2 games, and then the gauntlet, really 4 tough games that start with the world champion Eagles, the Chargers on a Thursday night. They go at Detroit, and then they play Baltimore. Yikes. Got to get some wins now while you can get them.
The beauty of the NFL is how quickly you can overreact, or at least get the ability to react, because there's so few games. So the Vikings rally from behind week 1. Everybody's feeling great. Okay, maybe we have something here in J.J. McCarthy. And then you fast forward a week, he doesn't look good. The entire team doesn't look good. Then you find out a day later he's injured. And I say all of that to say this. It feels like this is a point, Jeff, where it could very easily be a pack it in, mail it in kind of moment if you look really poor on Sunday. Because you can see how that snowballs, because then you got to go overseas. Very easy to say you should beat the Steelers and the Browns, but what if you only beat one of those teams? And then you lay out exactly what you said about the gauntlet. No matter who the quarterback is of the Minnesota Vikings, we know it's going to be Carson Wentz on Sunday. It just seems vitally important, whether you win it 16-13 or 31-10. It just seems vitally important that you find a way to win this, because, Jeff, I can see a world where it snowballs really quickly if you're 1-2, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be talking about things snowballing or spiraling out of control in late September.
No, definitely not. And I think it really sets up an important game and a big game at home. The Vikings want to get back on track at home after losing the Sunday night game to Atlanta, a game they were favored to win. They're favored this week also by just a field goal. And it's, as you mentioned, Carson Wentz will get the start. J.J. McCarthy out with that sprained ankle. Perhaps it's a good time for J.J. to sit back and kind of regroup after a rough outing against Atlanta, especially if he doesn't have his offensive line intact. And that's really a kind of a key concern going into this game. The injury report, Vikings had 12 players on the injury report on Wednesday. We'll see if things improve Thursday, Friday, heading into Sunday. They need to get some of those key guys back, starting with Christian Darrisaw, their Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. It's been a problem, and it was a problem against Atlanta. I don't think that Kevin O'Connell necessarily helped the cause by not chipping perhaps as much as he should have to help Justin School, or when Walter Rouse came in and the Falcons ended up with 6 sacks of McCarthy. Certainly Andrew Van Ginkel, we know he's a playmaker on defense, an important guy. Harrison Smith, a glue guy in the secondary they've been missing. Cashman's out for a few more weeks on IR, important guys. Even CJ Ham, pass protection, special teams, catching balls out of the backfield. They just had that long list of injuries, and really important, I think, to get some of these guys back as soon as this week. Ryan Kelly, another guy, the starting center, who went out with a concussion, will he make it back? If not, Michael Juergens is in, and that's a potential problem. So there's a lot of moving parts. Jeff Okudah could come back from his concussion this week and help the secondary. And the secondary is going to be tested if the Vikings can't get the pass rush going, which is mandatory against Jake Browning, the Bengals quarterback replacing Joe Burrow. They got to get pressure on him and to help the secondary, because you don't want guys like Isaiah Rodgers, Jeff Okudah, Dwight McLaughlin, Byron Murphy's fine, but when you're facing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, look out, batten down the hatches on defense. And the secondaries are going to have to help, but that pass rush is going to be a key. Running the ball is going to be a key. Keep that Bengals offense off the field, and then get after Jake Browning. He did throw 3 picks last week, but Ross, let's go to a couple of our audio highlights, and then we'll get to some of our interviews. And the Vikings faced the Bengals 2 years ago in Week 15 in Cincinnati. It was the year Kirk Cousins was out. Second half of the season. Nick Mullins started this game. He threw for over 300 against the Bengals, but he also, as per his custom, threw a couple picks in the game. Jake Browning started that game, had a pretty good outing, threw for 324. So he could enter this game with some confidence, knowing that he beat the Vikings that year. And here was one of the big plays he made in that game, which was actually a touchdown pass to T. Higgins that tied the game with, what was it, about 39 seconds to go. and we remember what happened here. This was ugly.
Browning looking, pressured, throws it deep, and the ball is caught by T. Higgins at the 1-yard line. And it's actually called a touchdown. Somehow Higgins got it across the line. Now we'll have to give that one a look.
Right there, feels the pressure, throws it up. T. Higgins again on the Caleb Evans, goes up, makes the catch, 2 feet down. It's a completion, reaches the ball.
Wow.
And goes over top of it, Chris. I think that is a touchdown.
I think my favorite part of that play, Jeff, if you remember it, even though it went against the Vikings, was basically T. Higgins' dance-like, Michael Jackson-like move to get that ball across the pylon. Very self-aware, knowing where he was at on the field was T. Higgins
was an
on that play.
Amazingly good play by Higgins, amazingly bad play by Caleb Evans and Mekhi Blackman, 2 corners no longer here, who kind of both watched him backpedal into the end zone and reach the ball back instead of knocking him out of bounds. And then Evan McPherson kicks the winning field goal in overtime, as he did 2 years ago, 2 years before that, when the Bengals also won, same score, 27-24 in overtime, and beat the Vikings that year in the season opener. So the good news for the Vikings, they've never lost to the Bengals here. And the last time they played here was way back in 2017, and the Vikings drilled them that day during that great season when they made it to the NFC Championship game. But that highlight courtesy of the NFL Network, and here courtesy of CBS, we move fast forward to last week, and the Bengals are 2-0, but a little suspect 2-0 because they've beaten the Browns, bad team, beat Jacksonville, suspect team, but had to come back in that Jacksonville game when Burrow got hurt. Browning comes in. He threw 3 picks in the game, also threw 2 touchdown passes, and had the game-winning score on a quarterback sneak. Here it was.
A sneak again over the top. Touchdown, Bengals. They have the lead with 18 seconds left.
If you ever heard a crew make a quarterback sneak sound so exciting, I know the moment in the game was important, but that sounded like the world's greatest quarterback sneak.
Yeah, he did a nice little leap, though, for Jake Browning, and got that touchdown and gained some confidence, I think, going into this game. We'll see. But the Bengals have been really kind of a shaky offensive team up and down this year, haven't run the ball very well at all. They're last in the league in rushing. But yet, I'm sure they're going to look at that tape of the Atlanta game where Atlanta ran for 218 yards. They're going to try to run it. I think the Vikings can stop Cincinnati better than they stopped Atlanta, force Browning to throw and then get after him. Here was another play from that same game. Trey Hendrickson, he led the NFL in sacks last year. He's their defensive right end. Spells trouble if Darrisaw's not in, or even if Darrisaw's in there and he hasn't played at all. Trey Hendrickson had the game-clinching sack against Jacksonville.
As the youth like to say, Jeff, he called game.
Long ways to go for Lawrence.
The Giants got to throw it out of bounds here or do the old hook and ladder.
Hendrickson from the backside. Without any timeouts left, that could do it.
Trey Hendrickson, he's a guy to watch. And I think I would say, regardless, Ross, of whether Darrisaw does start or if they're starting School, if he's back from his concussion, or if they're starting Blake Randall, perhaps, or Walter Rouse. They better give him help. And one of the things I had an issue with in the Atlanta game, Josh Oliver, great pass blocker, great run blocker, had only 14 snaps in that game. Now, Josh Oliver had a gimpy ankle, but if he's okay to be on the active roster and play 14 snaps, he needs to play more than that because they needed him in this game to help with the pass protection against those young Atlanta rookies, first round picks that came barging in on that right side against School. And so we'll see if Oliver gets more snaps this week, if they help more. But then again, when you totally miss a block, as Brian O'Neill did on the sack by Zach Harrison, where McCarthy fumbles on the first play of the fourth quarter, when we're thinking at that point, oh, down 6, Vikings have the ball.
Chance.
Here we
Still a
go,
chance.
fourth quarter like in Chicago, and then that fumble on the first play of the fourth quarter, and then the Falcons go down and kick another field goal by Parker Romo. That kind of stuff can't happen. Can't have those mental errors that they had on that play, whether that was O'Neill or whether a back was supposed to be chipping or whatever, or a tight end. Something went wrong badly on that play. They've got to clean up that type of stuff, clean up some of the penalty issues that they had in the game. But going back to that game, there were a few highlights, and here's one of them. And one of the things I'll say going into this week is that they have got to get more targets for Justin Jefferson and TJ Hockenson. Jefferson has had only 13 targets this season, only 7 catches, 120 some yards. Hockenson has 4 catches for 27 yards on 7 targets in 2 games. These are Pro Bowl players. These are the guys you count on. And whether it was McCarthy's inexperience or whatever, maybe Wentz can find those guys more. Maybe O'Connell needs to call more short passes, quick screens. Because when I watched Hockenson in training camp, Ross, he was getting every other throw from McCarthy. So it's befuddling that he hasn't been used more so far. And I think that has to change very quickly.
Well, Jeff, what is typically a young quarterback's best friend? The tight end.
Exactly.
What is a backup quarterback's best friend when you're thrust into playing? Typically, it's the tight end. It's the security blanket. And to your point on the Justin Jefferson thing, if you can't get the ball to him deep downfield, then you need to start manufacturing other ways to get the ball into his hands. So I really hope that Kevin O'Connell and the offensive staff is ready for that. But do you want to hear perhaps one of the few highlights from the Vikings offense?
From NBC on Sunday night. Here it was, that 50-yarder.
High snap from the new center. McCarthy has to protect the ball as he is sacked again. It's 5 for the Falcons in this first half. In the final 2 minutes, 12 seconds remaining. Atlanta bringing 5. McCarthy trying to load up and throw down the middle. There's Jefferson. JJ to the 33-yard line with time.
Thought I'd give you a little bit of context with the pressure that
Sure.
JJ McCarthy was under before that big passing play.
Right, for sure. And let's now hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering to building upon prior knowledge, year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 crew cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $4,322 plus $1,500 bonus cash. That's a total value over $5,800 plus no monthly payments until next year. See your Select Minnesota GMC dealer and Buick dealer today. Length of contract limited, deferred monthly payments for 120 days, must finance with GM Financial, down payment required at signing if applicable. Finance charges accrue from date of financing. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/30/25. So, as we enter this important game, Bengals come in 2-0, Vikings 1-1, needing a win. Maybe Cincy is feeling too good, perhaps too comfortable. We'll see. I don't think so. They are a team that knows how to win games, even though they've struggled in recent years, partially because of Joe Burrow's injuries. Even though Jake Browning went 4-3 as a starter 2 years ago when Burrow was out with that wrist injury. Let's hear from Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings coach, talking about the game ahead.
Some of the things we were hoping early on, we've seen some of that, and it'll continue hopefully.
Hey, Kevin, what's your plan at backup quarterback?
Yeah, Matt, Carson will start. Max is the backup. We brought, with the rules that being what they are, and with the emergency third quarterback, we wanted to, have one based upon, just the early aspect of our season. We're pretty deep into some position groupings as it is, so we wanted to make sure we could at least get a guy that's played before, and Desmond had a great workout, and have known about him and a lot, having gone back to evaluating him coming out, and he's been on his journey, and it's just good to get him in, and he'll be that emergency number 3 on Sunday, and I'm sure he'll do a great job getting some sort of a limited menu together that he feels good about. But yeah, excited for Carson to get a full week of preparation, and the way Max has been preparing, being 2 snaps away, will probably only be enhanced.
Yeah, the Vikings hope that Max Brosmer does not necessarily get his first appearance in an NFL game on Sunday. They did sign Ritter as an emergency third, and Max had some good moments in preseason, but regular season, totally different deal. And so they're hoping Carson Wentz pulls a Josh Dobbs out of his hat, as Josh did a couple of years ago on a very short notice signing. We'll see how it plays out. Carson will have O'Connell in his ear. He is familiar with that offense from being with the Rams 2 years ago, but he hasn't played, as he says, a meaningful game in a couple of years. And here is Carson Wentz talking about JJ McCarthy, talking about coming to this game excited to play. And it's also a game where he's going to have a lot of folks from North Dakota back home, where he went to high school, played at North Dakota State. He's going to have a lot of people and family in town watching this game. He probably had to buy a lot of tickets.
Not really, no. It's very different. I'm not gonna lie. It's exciting though. It was fun to go out there and sit through install meetings, knowing this is a chance personally that it's been a couple years since I've had like I said, a meaningful start. And so I've been staying ready behind the scenes, doing whatever I can, and like I said, it's been fast paced, just trying to learn this offense, learn these guys, all the things. But so to answer your question, it is quite a bit different, but at the same time, once we went out there and practiced, it was a Wednesday practice, and I kind of fell right back into that same routine I've had for 10 years now.
How ready are you?
I feel great. Physically, I feel great. Mentally, I feel like in a good spot. The coaches have done a great job just helping me try and grasp this as quick as I can. And I'm, that was one of my probably favorite things just about getting the chance to sign here a couple weeks ago, is just knowing from afar the type of game plans Coach O'Connell puts together, the way he calls plays. I've just really respected and appreciated and admired that from afar. So really excited to see it in action, this Sunday.
Carson has a lot of experience, 94 NFL starts. His record's around 500, but that 2017 season when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, he was 11-2 as a starter, tore his ACL, which knocked him out late in the season. And Nick Foles, of course, went on the historic run, including knocking the Vikings out in the NFC Championship game and winning the Super Bowl here over the Patriots. But Carson Wentz, second overall pick in 2016. We'll see how it works out. It's tough to come in on short notice, but he is a vet. And I think, obviously, as I mentioned before, keys to the game: run the ball to balance the offense. Jordan Mason taking up really the major role now with Aaron Jones on IR with the hamstring. Cam Akers, they signed this week, will be probably the number 2. So they need to run the ball, take some pressure off, and then pass protect much better than they did last week. Hopefully get some of those injured starters back, Darisaw, Kelly. If not, better help those guys, the young guys that are playing. Get Jefferson and Hawkinson more targets, as I mentioned. Defensively, stop the run. Cincinnati, not a good rushing team. And then pressure Browning into turnovers, which he had the 3 interceptions against Jacksonville. but then led the late drive, a 92-yard game-winning drive at the end of the game. He went 9 of 13 on that drive for 65 yards. The concern is if it's a close game and the Vikings pass rushers get tired towards the end of the game, that could be a problem. And that's where the Bengals capitalized on Jacksonville last week. So we'll see. But in their first game against Cleveland, they did not move the ball well at all. Joe Burrow only threw for 113 yards. They didn't run the ball, only 141 yards of offense. So maybe the Vikings defense can shut them down, force some more turnovers. They've only forced 2 turnovers these first 2 games after leading the league last year with 33. So those are some of the keys to the game. Obviously, we know win the turnover battle, stop so many penalties. Jalen Redmond, don't jump offside on 4th and 1, please. And also, Kevin O'Connell, when you're first and goal at the 2-yard line, maybe you want to run Jordan Mason and instead of trying to throw the ball down there. That's why they signed Mason, is what we heard. So pound the rock with Jordan and try to get in the end zone with him before you start throwing the ball down there. Limit the penalties, and the home crowd's has to be a big factor this week. They were great on Sunday night, but I think it's going to be important to get off to a good start in this game, so the crowd is amped up and makes it more difficult. Jake Browning says that he can handle the crowd noise, that he's used to it because he started his career here as a practice squad quarterback. He's used to it. We'll see about that. And here's one of the guys who's going to be chasing him, Jonathan Grenard, talking about facing the Bengals. And Grenard had a sack last week, was the Vikings Pro Bowl player last year. Be great if he has Van Ginkel on the other side this week. Dallas Turner had a sack, but he also had a little trouble in the run defense setting the edge. So I think Van Ginkel's important, or get Dallas to stay home and set that edge. But here's Jonathan Grenard.
We just kept fighting. I understood that they're going to get some plays and stuff like that, but just matter of fact, just sticking together and understanding, obviously they're going to come to us at the end of the game like some teams have done. So just got to keep doing the dirty work.
Are there opportunities that you may have with them having to switch quarterbacks, a lot like they're in their defense talking about with you guys?
Yeah, but he's ran plays with them before. Jay Brown's a good quarterback, even all the way back to college, and even for them, he's weathered these storms before. Obviously, he got thrown into it last week and had a couple picks, but that's just probably him being off rhythm and stuff like that. So I expect him to do some quick game. Still run the ball. Obviously, if you look at the tape from last week of us in Atlanta, they're going to run the ball, try to do the same things they did, and just try to make that game, build it off of that, and go off of that aspect.
And Jake Browning talked at his media session about confidence and the confidence he has as the number 2 quarterback stepping in for Burrow, who sounds like he's going to be out for a long time, about 3 months with that toe injury.
Yeah, I think it's a balance of, obviously, like I earned that. It wasn't like, there's nobody else, we'll just put Jake in. Like I spent 2 years on P Squad here, working really hard and showing a lot of strides and improvement. And then obviously them having the confidence to stick with me and give me that opportunity. I think there's a lot of people that, maybe had my first couple of years in the NFL that didn't make it because, there wasn't somebody willing to give the chance to that because they were worried that it wouldn't go well or who knows what. And so, yeah, I think it's a combination of the two, of getting that opportunity, but also, I earned that opportunity and earned this opportunity. And so, don't want to discredit myself on some of that stuff.
And Jake did take 4 sacks in that game a couple of years ago. So maybe there's an opportunity for the Vikings to do some damage there. We'll see. Let's hear, before we go around the NFL, and Ross and I are going to make our prediction on this Vikings-Bengals battle on Sunday. Let's hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication. A dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering. To building upon prior knowledge, year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 Crew Cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $4,322 plus $1,500 bonus cash. That's a total value over $5,800 plus no monthly payments until next year. See your local GMC dealer today. Length of contract limited. Deferred monthly payments for 120 days. Excludes residents of Pennsylvania. Must finance with GM Financial. Down payment required at signing if applicable. Finance charges accrue from data financing. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/30/25.
So Ross, did you pick the Falcons last week? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I'm going to do some reverse psychology if you'll let me go.
I'm gonna let you go first this time. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was confident last week, and I believe rightfully so, but I was confident that the Vikings would win. They did not. Jeff, I actually think that this is a taller task for Carson Wentz and the Minnesota Vikings than it is for Jake Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals for many reasons. Jake Browning has now been with the Bengals for, I think, almost 3 years. He started games. He has a bit of, I guess, if we use the word rhythm, he understands where his receivers are going to be. I think this is a really tall task for the Minnesota Vikings. But reverse psychology, my mind says the Bengals win this game. My heart is going to pick the Minnesota Vikings on a Will Reichard field goal late in the game. The Minnesota Vikings get this one done. Jeff, by a final score of 27-24. The Minnesota Vikings. Doesn't it sound familiar? This time, it's just a different team and a different kicker. 27-24 Vikings.
Well, the Vikings, as I said, have never lost to the Bengals here in Minnesota. And I agree with you about it being a tall task for Carson Wentz compared to Jake Browning when Wentz is just arriving here, had been here 3 weeks. And so I think that to me, along with all the injuries now, if you tell me that all those injured guys are coming back for the Vikings, then I would probably pick them. But not knowing how healthy they're going to be, and especially with key guys like Darisaw and Van Ginkel and Harrison Smith and
that's it, Jeff. 2/5 of the offensive line potentially not playing.
Ryan Kelly. Yep. Exactly. So I'm going to reluctantly go with the Bengals. I think Browning is in a better position to have success compared to Carson Wentz this week. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way. It's a game I think the Vikings defense really needs to make a stand. But are they going to be fully healthy to do that? So I'm going to, as I said, reluctantly pick Cincinnati 24-20. I'm not going 27-24, 24-20. But maybe the Vikings get that late touchdown and win 27-24. But I'm going to pick the Bengals. I think the Vikings are going to regroup after that. When they go overseas, I think they're going to get guys back healthy. Addison will come back from his suspension. CJ Ham will be back the second week. Cashman's coming back in a few weeks. Aaron Jones, they need to get healthy. Kelly.
Darisaw will play eventually, whether it's this weekend or not. Darisaw's close, so that'll be helpful.
Exactly right. So I'm picking the Bengals, but I think it's going to be a close game, and I hope it goes the other way. Going around the NFL real quickly, big game for NFC North teams is Baltimore hosting Detroit on Monday night. And I think this game's going to swing on if the Ravens can put the pressure on Jared Goff as the Packers did in that opener, which made a huge difference in that game compared to the Bears, who couldn't get to Goff, and then he torched them for 52 points and 5 touchdowns. So, but I'm picking Baltimore at home in that game. Elsewhere in the division, the Packers should get to 3-0 with a win in Cleveland, but it wouldn't be shocking to have an upset on the road, but I don't think it happens. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to take the Bears to upset the Cowboys. I think Dallas is just a schizophrenic team, and I'm going to take the Bears to find a way to win at Soldier Field on Sunday.
Is there a game, not to cut you off, Jeff, is there a game tougher this week to predict who's going to win? Because I had that exact same thought. It wouldn't surprise me if either team wins by 4 touchdowns or if it's a battle of 2 teams that truly don't want to win the game, but somebody walks away a winner.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I'm going with that. Rams and Eagles, a couple of 2-0 teams, rematch of a divisional playoff last year. I like Philly at home. And Denver at the Chargers, an interesting game. In the AFC West, the Chargers look like gangbusters the first 2 games. have won 2 games in the division. Weird to start 3 straight games in the division, but the Chargers, Justin Herbert, playing MVP type football early in the season. 127 rating looks good. You have any alternate picks than those? You like Detroit or Baltimore?
I actually am with you. I like Baltimore. When I think of Detroit and Baltimore, though, this is not. I really still like Detroit. I think they're going to be fine. They're going to be heard from. But I like that Baltimore's home. It's a night game, I do believe. And then also the 2 words that I think of: defense optional. It feels like whichever defense can make one play, or potentially who has the ball last, might be the winner of that game. I'm also going to go with Baltimore too. Lamar Jackson is the king of the regular season. He'll find a way to get this one done.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you there, and we will be back on Monday to break down the Vikings and the Bengals on our Purple Report. And this has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers in the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. This is Jeff Diamond with Ross Brendel. Hoping everybody has a great weekend and enjoy the Vikings Bengals on Sunday. We'll be back to talk to you on Monday.